Hey, it's Scotty here, and thanks to everyone who recently came and visited us at the LifeFM Community Festival. And part of the festival was the studio experience, where you could sit down and talk about a topic that you were passionate about. And Kit caught up with John as he spoke about his Art of Ministry podcast.
This is LifeFM. You're here with Kit, and we are joined by John, who's come in to the LifeFM Community Festival, and you're enjoying a studio experience. What are your thoughts so far?
It's amazing. I love tech, and I love screens with buttons and colours, and that's what I have in front of me, and I just keep looking at it going, I wonder what that does, and I don't know if I want to press that button and see if that turn something on or off. I think I'm just going to keep my hands to myself and just listen, I think.
Well, thank you very much for coming in. You have brought your son in. Have you had a favourite thing that you've done here so far?
I think at the moment it's just been the excitement of being on here, actually, because it's one of those things that I've always wanted to do, and to actually be in a real live radio station and have a chat and talk. And the only time I've been in here before at LifeFM was when my mum did a chat about her counselling hotline she was involved in that was linked to LifeFM. And I remember sitting watching her on studio thinking, wow, I wonder what that's like. So to actually be involved in here is probably the highlight for me so far. But I do see there are show bags, and my son had an ice cream which looked particularly good. So I may lean in that direction at some point.
Sounds like a plan. But speaking of plans, you are a man with a plan, and a man with a podcast, which is what you've come in to share with us today. So, John, tell us a bit about it.
My friend Lockie and I started a podcast called The Art of Ministry, where we felt there was a bit of a gap in podcasts in general, and also in different representations of the arts in Christian ministry. And we thought that there's no one really talking about this. And the arts are so big now. The arts are so big around the world in contemporary life, and on the internet you'll always see graphics and graphic design and advertising and all sorts of things. And often in churches you'll see logos and you'll see art, but no one really talks much about it. It seems a bit of a niche field. And we thought, why don't we talk about how people use the arts when they're talking about Jesus, which is something that both of us have done in our whole lives, but it's one of those areas where we've always felt a little bit unsure about how many people do this. How do we define the arts? Is it performing arts, visual, etc.? And Lockie came at it from the dramatic side and from the written side. I'm much more on the visual and the music side. And as a partnership, it just felt so right to represent everything. And we've had a wonderful time talking to people from all walks of life in talking about how they use art and the arts broadly to talk about Jesus.
I love it. One of my favourite verses in the Bible, in the beginning, God created. We serve a very creative God, and I think it's important that we reflect that in the way that we worship him and study him and learn more about him.
I mean, if we're made in the image of God, and we are, then we have creativeness, within us that God's given us. So it's amazing to see how creative people can be. And that's been the highlight for me in what we've been doing, because I've talked to people who have made puzzles and talked about how they've shared about Jesus in making their puzzles. We've talked to people who have worked actually from LifeFM and how they've used their time there to share. And we've also got a lot of plans for future ones about visual artists and dramatic art, even journaling and prayer journaling and all sorts of things like that we'd love to work through. Yeah.
Do you have plans in terms of like where you want to take the podcast in the future? Like, is it going to continue to be interviews with other people, or are you hoping to like make it more of a teaching?
Yeah, we're going to take over the world, and we're going to podcast from the moon first. No, we're not going to do that. I think mainly we're just going to see how it develops, because I think it's good to have it kind of organic. Mm-hmm. What has amazed me most, and what I didn't necessarily expect, was the stories of how people shared about how they had used evangelism and the arts in talking about Jesus and the individual stories. I didn't expect to be blown away as much as I was about people saying, this is what happened to me, and this is how I share about Jesus in this context. One fellow, Stephen, talked about how he uses puppets, and he talked about how he hosted an entire church service with a puppet. Giant crowd gathering, and it was highly successful. And when you hear things like that, you think, that's out of the box, and that's how it should be. People should be feeling free to be creative whilst, transmitting the message of Jesus in a way that people perhaps wouldn't expect sometimes. There's something surprising, but something wonderful. So the stories has been, I think, the big thing for me. And as long as we can keep getting stories like that inspire people, I think that's the direction that organically I'd like the way to go. Ultimately, it's about glorifying God and about sharing about Jesus and how you can do that best in your own context, whatever that is, and giving people the confidence to use their art and not go, oh, I don't know if I'm good at that, or I'm not very good at this, or whatever. In my experience, it doesn't really matter. Like, whether someone's highly artistic in their visual method and or whether it's stick figures. If you've got a message you can put across, and it doesn't really matter, in my view, sometimes the skill or the artistic style. I think it's more about the message and how you put it all together. You only have to look at comics that are in the newspaper and things, and you go, those are very simple drawings, but the messages are very profound. I think we can do the same thing, whether it's with a very descriptive art or whether it's very simple.
Well, John, thank you so much for coming in and sharing with us today. I think there'll be a fair few people hitting subscribe after listening to you, because I feel like this is a really needed area, particularly in today's church. So thank you for coming in.
Thanks for the opportunity. I've had a ball, and I'm going to continue to have a ball when I walk around this place.
Keep listening throughout the week for more studio experiences from the LifeFM Community Festival here on The Takeover on LifeFM.